What's up everybody, and welcome back to Techno Geek. Today we're going to cover which monitor might be right for you and whether or not you need to upgrade. So when we're talking about choosing monitor, I think one of the first things we should really talk about is panel types. There's only 4 standard ones that I really know of, so those are the ones we're going to hit on today. We got IPS, PLS, TN, and VA. IPS everybody touts as being the best for its color reproduction, mostly vibrant and pretty dark blacks. I'm going to agree with everybody else and say that IPS is really good for color reproduction. And this is really important if you are a content creator or if you're a web designer or a graphic designer and you just need to make sure that you're seeing the right colors in front of you. Or if you're just a stickler for having the right colors, maybe you're just a gamer and you want to make sure you're seeing things as they were meant to be seen when the developer made them. That's great. IPS is just what you need. So PLS, that's just Samsung's version of IPS, but it seems pretty unanimous that PLS is a pretty good implementation by Samsung of IPS. TN is typical for most gaming monitors. You're going to see that whenever you get up into the high refresh rates, especially above 100 Hz. It's just so much easier to get the TN panel to refresh faster. VA, I don't really have a lot to say about this because I don't think I've ever seen a scenario where it was better than TN or IPS. It's sort of like a halfway point, and I think it's a cost-saving measure that a manufacturer will use in order to get you close to the same color reproduction as IPS, but still kind of leaning more towards TN. So when you're shopping for your monitor, after you've determined which panel type is best for you, the next thing you want to pay close attention to is monitor resolution. There's 4 typical standard 16:9 resolutions. That's 720p, 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. But there's also another non-standard. It's 21:9, and that gives you some ultra-wide. When it comes to monitor resolution, it's really going to come down to how big do you want your screen. If you want it pretty small, you can stick to 720p, especially if you're below the 21-inch mark. 720p still looks pretty good, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a graphics card that can't push any game at 720p these days. But most of the time, we want to stick with 1080p. 1080p looks crisp, clear, and it's pretty much industry standard across the board. Now, 1080p you don't want to get too big on because you're going to start getting sort of a screen door effect. So I would try to stay below 27 inches. And really that's pushing it. That's getting a little high up there. I have a 27-inch monitor, the BenQ XL2720Z, and it's 1080p, and every now and again, especially when it gets into the blacks or maybe some darker blues, I really start to notice a screen door effect on my monitor. So if you want to go above 26 inches, then a 1440p monitor is golden for you. Lots of people are saying this is the perfect sweet spot for a gamer or a content creator because you don't have to adjust the size of the text in Windows. And also if you're using this for some type of productivity, then you're going to have more space on your monitor to be able to see all the things that you're working on. So after 1440p, we got the big dog on campus. That's 4K. This is where everybody wants to be. That's a resolution of 3840 by 2160. It kind of feels like they're cheating you a little bit there because it's not actually 4000. But I really think the name comes from the fact that if you do the math, 4K resolution is 4 times the pixel density of 1080p resolution. 4K monitors, if I had to guess, could probably be 4 times the size of a 1080p monitor. So 24 times 4, 96. I don't even know if they make a 96-inch monitor. If they do, please link it down in the comments below. So finally, there's ultra-wide, which is a different aspect ratio altogether. It's 21:9 rather than 16:9. It's more standard in movies. If you're ever watching something on your standard 16:9, you'll notice there's these black bars at the top and the bottom. That's because it's actually made in this ultra-wide resolution. Ultra-wide is becoming more integrated in games, which is great because you used to have these black bars on the side of your game when you'd be gaming with an ultra-wide screen. But if you were a gamer who also did a little bit of productivity, then ultra-wide is really great because you have even more screen real estate to work with while you're creating. And in gaming, ultra-wide has been described as more like peering through a window rather than sitting at a desk and looking at a monitor. Okay, so now you've got your monitor resolution down pat. So the next thing you need to decide is, do you need adaptive sync? The short answer for that is yes. If you're a gamer and you're shopping for a monitor right now, then look for one with G-Sync or FreeSync. The long answer is no, and we'll get to that in a minute. But first, let's talk about what the heck is adaptive sync anyway. Adaptive sync is a type of technology that forces the panel of your monitor to refresh at the same rate as your GPU. And if you've been a gamer for a while, then you'll be familiar with VSync. And VSync sort of did the opposite, to where it would force the GPU to slow down to match the frame rate of your monitor. And the reason that we used VSync is to avoid screen tearing, which really, under some extreme circumstances, can completely destroy game immersion. So what adaptive sync or G-Sync or FreeSync are doing is allowing your graphics card to produce as many or as little frames as possible, and your monitor will just automatically adjust to where you won't get any screen tearing, and you can turn VSync off. This is great because what VSync did is it caused some drastic changes in the refresh rate that your GPU is putting out. While a couple of frames when you're above 60 doesn't make too much of a difference, 15 frames really makes a huge difference, and that's what your eye really notices. It doesn't really notice the fact that you're playing between 45 and 75 hertz. What your eye notices is these drastic changes, and what adaptive sync does is it allows those changes to be more subtle so that your brain doesn't recognize them. So on the most basic level, G-Sync and FreeSync are the same thing. They're just two different types of adaptive sync. The difference is that G-Sync belongs to NVIDIA, and FreeSync, which is open source, so can belong to anybody, but currently only belongs to AMD. So G-Sync, NVIDIA, FreeSync, AMD. Pretty simple. So if you have a GTX 760, then you don't want to run out and buy a FreeSync monitor, because the two types of technology are currently not compatible. There are some slight differences between G-Sync and FreeSync. I don't really want to get into those, but there are some benefits like frame doubling on G-Sync and open source on FreeSync. So now we've covered adaptive sync, let me go ahead and move into refresh rate. So maybe you already have a pretty decent monitor. A non-G-Sync, non-FreeSync monitor with a 144 Hz refresh rate. Now what does that mean? 144 Hertz. Typically, Hertz refers to how many things can happen in 1 second. So, on a monitor, 144 Hertz refers to 144 frames. So, a 144 Hertz monitor is capable of outputting 144 frames per second. Even at 1080p, 144 frames per second is pretty hard to hit. You'd have to have a pretty beefy system to top out a 144 Hz monitor at 1080p. When you have a high refresh rate monitor and your graphics card is not exceeding that limit of 144 Hz, then you're not really going to have too much of a problem with tearing. So this is important. I think that a lot of people out there think that, oh, I have this stupid regular monitor without G-Sync, FreeSync, I need to upgrade to a new monitor. And that's just not true. I really truly believe if you have a high refresh rate monitor, there's no reason to upgrade. Just stay right where you are, because right now there aren't very many graphics setups that you can have that are going to exceed 144 Hz at 1080p. And if you are, then use DSR, which if you don't know what that is, I'll link it somewhere in the description. And what that'll do is bump up your screen resolution so that way you're not exceeding the refresh rate of your monitor and you can play without tearing. This is what I do. I play my games at high settings, and most of the time I'm hitting right around 75 Hz. and I leave my monitor at 144 hertz. And since I'm always staying around 75 and I'm never exceeding that 144 hertz limit, then I never really get screen tearing. So I can play just fine with no screen tearing and VSync off just by setting my monitor to 144 hertz. Now, if you're sitting here and you're watching this video and you're like, oh, well, all I have is a 75 hertz or a 60 hertz monitor. Should I upgrade? Should I go for G-Sync or FreeSync? Well, if you have the money, yeah, I think so. I think that'd be great because more and more graphics cards are able to break that 60 hertz limits even at 1080p. I have a GTX 760 and it's hitting at, like I said, 75 frames per second at high settings. Anyways, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I really appreciate you tuning in and listening to what I had to say. I hope I answered some questions for everybody, and I hope with this little bit of info, you can go out and find the right monitor set up for you, or maybe you found that you already have the right monitor set up and you don't need to go anywhere. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, point and click to that like button and leave a comment down below if you have any more questions for me that you'd like to answer, and also leave a comment if you like this sort of gameplay voiceover type thing. I brought you Rocket League this week, but I have tons of other games, so also leave a comment if you want me to play some other game. Okay, I'm going to get out of here. I'll see everybody in the next one.